Well, welcome everyone. My name is Julian Jacobs. I'm a senior economist at OMFIF, and welcome to the session on powering central bank digital transformation with cloud technology. Very pleased to have Julien Casulleras and Sébastien Claude join us today, both from the Banque de France. So this session, we're going to talk a lot about how cloud computing and cloud in general is being used by central banks to help catalyze their digital transformation. We'll speak a little bit about how cloud is being used for smoother APIs, better service delivery, greater efficiency, movement in and improvements in data optimization, as well as improving operating models and potentially abetting use of other technology. So we'll start off with presentations from both Julien and Sébastien. We'll go to a brief Q&A with me and them, and then we'll conclude with audience questions. And so with that, Sébastien, if you want to begin, you can start us off by talking about central bank's cloud journey.
Yes, thank you, Julian. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everybody. I will share with you a deck of slides for you to support this first introduction to our cloud journey. I hope everybody is able to see the slide. Okay, so a brief talk about our Eclair program, which is the name of the cloud program at Banque de France, which started now almost 7 years ago. So what is it? So it's a full program for the future of the IT of Banque de France, because Eclair means ecosystem cloud d'avenir. Yeah, it's the future in French. So it was designed to meet the needs and requirements of all the business units of the Banque de France, and also more broad than that about also ability to meet requirement for other central banks. These are mainly, we will go into detail, but mainly private cloud services and CI/CD solution, which are custom-made, tailored to the needs of the central banks, especially for security, for example. And this is fully built internally by Banque de France IT teams, which act as a cloud provider internally for the Banque de France, hosting all these private service on our own data centers. Why we did start this program and what are the drivers for cloud computing in a central bank? First, maybe on top, of course, agility. It was a very important pillar of needs already 7 years ago, and it's still the same, to let the business be able to evolve and to deploy application more frequently. Also supporting their innovation trends or their work to experiment some new technologies, some new architecture, some new tools. So these are some properties that cloud computing can leverage on our own. Of course, all this agility, ability to make innovation, to have quickly some resources have to come in a controlled manner, especially, of course, in a financial way, but also today on the let's say power consumption and these things. We are able also to cut resources when they are not needed. This, even if at the start of the program, it was more a program to learn, to discover the possibility of cloud, we have now many applications running in production with very high level of requirements. And of course, the services have to be very reliable and at least the same SLAs that the legacy systems are providing. Quick overview, kind of a timeline, mainly focused on the private workloads we are hosting. So as I was quickly saying, in 2016, it was kind of laboratory, but very soon we have some application, and as soon as 2 years later, we were running maybe only 5 applications in production, but real application and some core business application. And so it grows, as you can see, for the next years. We also growth in terms of organization on the Eclair team side, especially also with methodology, growing with agility at scale with some frameworks such as SAFe. And 60 applications, we are roughly a bit more today, but it's around 15% of the application portfolio of Banque de France, which is it's consequent. It's not just a few of our applications. We have I guess roughly 400 applications in our portfolio. Maybe main pillars of our actual cloud strategy is still to stick more to private cloud services over public cloud services, mainly for sovereignty reasons, because up to today, all the sovereign cloud offering in Europe are still ongoing work. So we want to use, if we want to use public cloud services, there to be a sovereign cloud offering, security reason and protection of personal data. So this is really a trend today to use more private cloud services, as we have them already also. Of course, public cloud exists and we use it when we have no problems of sensitive data, especially for experimentation. We also use it for some software as a service solution, because yes, also the market, we all see it is evolving, and some vendors only provide also more and more software as a service solution. And so in the future, again, we look especially for sovereign cloud offering and the labeling of some cloud provider, either with the Secnum Cloud labeling by the National Security Agency in France, or the UCS label at the European level. Here is a quick overview of our workloads. On the left, you can see that when we have very high sensitivity on data and application, for the time being, we let them in the legacy system, especially because they are sometimes they require a very dedicated hardware, which is not really compatible with the cloud approach. But as soon, even for quite high sensitivity data, we can put it in our private cloud, which we build more and more on platform around Kubernetes and the distribution OpenShift. We use some public cloud or, as I said, sovereign cloud with the Secnum Cloud labeling with outscale, we call trusted cloud, and also public cloud only for experimentation, getting some software package, and also collaborative tools that are more and more on a software as a service delivery model. And on the right, it's a view of the share of the cloud application regarding the whole application portfolio. So you can see roughly 15% in the private cloud, 12% in the public, but again, it's more the collaborative offer and experimentation. and the traditional infrastructure are still a majority. You see that it will be more 1/3, 2/3 2 years from now. We can discuss that, but we have no plan to, let's say, move everything to the cloud in 2 years. It's not working like that. A quick word about some challenges that we could maybe detail after. But of course, on this cloud, on cloud computing, scalability is a nice property. As I told, we use mainly private cloud services, so we have to still do capacity planning, of course, to manage our hardware capacity. We also use the public cloud, but its scalability, of course, is a facility in the public cloud services. But we had also some testing in opening region where the capacity was not always really on demand. And we know that it could be worse when every client of a public cloud provider are competing for the resource when I don't know, when there are some peak in demands, like of course periods like Black Friday, this kind of thing. Of course, there are also changes for the disaster recovery, business continuity, high availability architecture, because cloud computing offers many new ways to architecture your application and have a better level of availability. But most of the time, you have to, of course, design the application for this new cloud services. So some properties come at let's say low price, like using containers, which will leverage nice RTO features with replicate, etc. But for other, especially stateful application, you will maybe have to more and more leverage the replication of data at the application level, which could have some, of course, a huge impact on the design of the application. And when you run in a private cloud, of course, it's much better to have 3 data centers, which is not the most common use case amongst companies that may most of the time have only 2 data centers. It's much better to have 3 to handle all of the high availability patterns. Challenge, we will go maybe more in detail also, but for sure, cybersecurity, it's a major concern for us. I would just say that, of course, we tend to restrict as much as possible what we expose to the internet. We say that there is data sovereignty, so we are talking about the fact that for using public cloud for sensitive data, we have to assess. We are in the process continuously assessing the offering of these second cloud or future EUCS cloud services offering. Cloud services is also a new way of deploying the application, packaging them, and there is all this supply chain management tooling that is very important to cope with. So it's very convenient, but it's a very important point to focus for security. There are many facilities in terms of auditing the whole process of the building of your application, etc., and to really have a nice inventory of all the assets that you have in your IT and what you are using to build your application. Challenges also on security, on administration tasks at the cloud service level, or also for the client that are using the cloud APIs. We have strict policies to use very specific workstation within an out open network to do this administration task. And related to the other, to last point, maybe it's sometimes it's always a trade-off of giving autonomy to the project team working in more a DevOps paradigm and still having a high level of security and this kind of restriction to the administration tasks. And of course, all this technology, cloud technology, is very interesting in terms of pooling resources and having this multi-tenant possibility. But we effectively care very much about how much we can isolate tenants and what if the isolation mechanism have vulnerabilities or this kind of stuff. So that's for the presentation, and maybe I will leave the floor to Julien.
Yes, thank you very much, Sébastien. Hi, everyone. Well, it's quite impressive to see so many people connected. I'm sorry I'm not wearing a tie. Well, as said by Julien at the beginning of the meeting, so I am Julien Casulleras, Deputy Head of the IT projects for Monetary Policy, Market Operation and Payment System for Banque de France. So here we are making the links with some CBDC cloud use cases that we ran for some years now. So maybe I will go through the three of them. On the first one, now that you have gone through the cloud principles with Sébastien, maybe showing what had happened and what is going to happen regarding the retail CBDC. And here I am only talking about retail because we also have some wholesale experiments, but we are going to focus only on the retail ones today. So the Euro system has started studying the digital euro business case for some years. So first through some experiments led by the ECB, in which Banque de France had a strong participation as we led one of the four experiments. So we did use, at the time being, our private cloud named Storm, and which was based on Eclair, presented just earlier by Sébastien, but with specific external connections. So I won't go into further details on that one because it was a long time ago and we don't have that much time, to be honest. But it proved to that using our private cloud for such experiments was really efficient, and it went very fast to enable deploying the prototypes on it and connecting to the external world. So Sébastien, don't hesitate to intervene if you had something to add, because I know that you are expert on that one. So you can go to the next one, because we then also participated in the digital euro investigation phase, where we provided some cloud hosting services for the prototype team to be able developing and deploying and hosting the prototype. So this hosting was shared with Banca d'Italia, and I see that some colleagues are connected. So hello guys, nice to see you here. And I don't know, Sébastien, if you would once again complement, but it allowed providing a large range of services and proved to be the best and fastest way to deliver hosting services, and that was really easy to manage on a day-to-day basis. If that's okay, then we can go to the next slide, Sébastien. Thanks. And now we are talking about the future. So I can't say much on what is going to be decided as regard the launch of the project. So pending the governing council decision, but we can at least mention the non-functional requirements that the infrastructure should cope with. So as you can see with the figures provided, it's going to be quite demanding. So only referring to the figures for the users, for example. So as you can see, many users and many entries in the system are foreseen. We are also talking about the performances and the high throughput. And Sébastien was mentioning just before, the peak can be reached, for example, on a Black Friday event, for example, and with a latency that is also quite challenging, as you can see. So that was on the volume and the performance side, but as you can see, we also have some challenges to face with the high availability of the platform. So with a 24/7 requirement, 99.99 availability requirement, and a platform that should be geographically distributed, so to ensure the resilience and to reach the well-known RPO and RTO that are set to 0 at this stage. So once again, quite challenging. Should the project be launched, believe me, we'll have some great time addressing all the challenges. The presentation is now coming to an end, so I may leave the floor to Julien. If you have any questions. But one thing, thank you very much for allowing us to intervene in the meeting.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Sébastien. Thank you, Julien, for that presentation. Just before we jump into the Q&A section of this event, I just want to say thank you to IBM for their support, collaboration, and thought leadership in producing our report, Central Banking and Cloud Services. That will be available for download in the chat box. So if you're enjoying this discussion, definitely be sure to check that out. But now I want to turn to a few questions following off of that presentation. And I want to begin by asking just big picture, why is digitalization, of which cloud is a part, important for central banks, and how are central banks, I mean, you spoke about this already a little bit, but how are central banks in general implementing these nascent digital innovations into their operating models?
Well, if I had to go through the digital technologies, they are transforming the finance along 3 main trends. So we see new players, which to date have been subject to little or no regulation, whereas the current financial equilibrium is dominated by bank-based ecosystem, which means entities subject to regulation and supervision. The second trend is new form of investment and settlement asset in tokenized form. So whereas the current financial equilibrium is dominated by the use of commercial bank money and central bank money at this stage. And the last one is decentralized market infrastructures, whereas the current financial equilibrium is based on centralized market infrastructures on intermediaries. So that may raise or trigger questions. The first one is how to organize the interplay with the financial system. And there we can maybe answer that it could be regulation, and how to keep confidence within the system. And there maybe the answer is to how to revisit the access to central bank money, which is the well-known safe and liquid settlement asset. You were also talking about innovation. I don't know if it answered the first part of the question, Julien.
Yeah. Repeat the first part. So, why is digitalization important?
Yeah, exactly. So now coming to innovation, well, it's also a strategic priority for Banque de France, in line with our 3 main missions, so monetary strategy, financial stability, and services to the economy. And that explains the development of an innovation roadmap around the 3 technological priorities, which are blockchain, AI, and post-quantum cryptography. So the objective is to leverage on technologies and their uses to improve our processes, digitalize our activities, and strengthen the way to conduct our missions. And we have a specific department in Banque de France, so we created the lab in 2017 to enable innovation and to support the business units for thinking out of the box, and to be the federation of innovation capabilities within the bank.
So just following off that, we're going to jump into a couple of the topics that you just mentioned around digital currencies as well as artificial intelligence. Before we get there, I'd like to ask a little bit about how cloud plays a role in the Banque de France's strategy in the short, medium, and long term. If you could just expand on that a little bit, that would be great.
So that could be.
Yes, maybe I could get this one. As we have seen, the cloud computing is already actively used by Banque de France since 2016, including real production workload. So the role is actually an operational role and to support production workload. Of course, we have also seen that cloud computing is mainly private cloud services for Banque de France. Even if we see that the market is of course changing really fast on that one, and especially for the software as a service solution model, we tend to see that some of vendors are exclusively delivering their solution through this way, and they are hosting sometimes in cloud service provider that we may not fully trust. So we are following this trend while today and for the near future, keeping all sensitive data and workloads on premise. But yeah, maybe for the medium term, the role of cloud is really a mean to support all this innovation, experimentation, and work that we are doing within the central bank and with the other central bank or even startups company. It is a mean to bring also agility in our business unit. So we may say that for short term, medium term, the usage of cloud is kind of limited to these use cases of innovation. But only with that, we already covered, as we've seen, almost 15% of our application portfolio. Of course, for the long term, we see cloud computing playing a major role in the way we will transform the business of the central bank through this digitalization. Sorry. But also in the way we operate on these applications as the migration to the cloud will be more massive. We have seen that for today, we go more on a step-by-step approach and opportunistic manner. But yes, this will change, I think, a lot the way we operate the operation model. And this is maybe today a change we are still, if I may say, experimenting, because it's really the most changing in the organization is our separation of role and duties between developing the business and also the operation.
So just to follow up on one thing you mentioned about the role of cloud and potentially improving the Banque de France's agility. Could you comment a little bit more on what you see as the benefits of cloud to the Banque de France, maybe speaking a little bit more about what that agility looks like, and then potentially what some of the risks might be of implementing cloud as well?
Yes, so agility is one of the main benefits, and we can really see it as I have maybe not real figure or KPI to share, but we were more in a trend some years ago to have a rollout of application maybe once a year or 2 times a year or maybe 4 times a year. And now we have applications that move to the cloud, which are more on maybe a weekly basis. So we have we also have this much more facility to also to audit this application and to do patching management, vulnerability management, security assessment, which is very important for us. It's a lot of change we are also doing on the application concerning security. As I said, the other benefits is the way we can operate application and give more autonomy to the project team. So this is a way to gain also agility. Of course, also on the security level or the way we deliver application and we package them. Cloud computing is a very different way at technological level to handle and tackle this way of packaging, delivering application, including the infrastructure, which is now described with code. So these are real benefits to again to more master your infrastructure and the way you deploy application and the way you operate them and manage them. What can I say? Again, agility is very important to be able to adapt to the crisis or the uncertainty we have in our today's world. We have, of course, all see the coronavirus crisis, but I can remember that we were able to update some application quite rapidly during this very hard phase. Of course, there are risks, as you mentioned, coming with cloud computing. Maybe we have, as it's technology, we are also very concerned about vendor lock-in. So we run, of course, on private cloud services, but we use, of course, products to do that. I quickly mentioned Kubernetes. It's a way of using some open source technology is a way to avoid this vendor lock-in. Of course, maybe another risk is that regarding technology, it changes very quickly. There are many trends, many paths to follow, many different technologies to keep up with. So it could be sometimes difficult to make the right decision. So again, we tend to apply the agility first to the building and the way we manage cloud services themselves. So we are able to change if we go on a wrong path. Again, for the risk, maybe to go too quickly and too massively to the cloud may be a risk to not be able to fully handle the migration and all the organizational change that cloud brings. So I will put that as a risk, and I think we mitigate it with a realistic roadmap to move progressively to the cloud. And we had, of course, all the security topics about the risk and especially sovereignty of the data, as it is a major concern for us as a central bank.
Right.
So we have, yeah.
No, please.
No, I was just saying that we periodically assess again all our portfolio to see if we are able to move certain application now to certain cloud target or landing zone. Yeah.
Well, so just maybe pushing a little bit more on this point about data sovereignty, data protection, data security. Can you maybe speak a little bit more about how central banks might mitigate against cybersecurity risks, particularly with respect to cloud, but I suppose in general as well? And also, if a cybersecurity attack does occur, what might central banks be able to do to recover some of those losses and maybe limit the damage?
Well, I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but what I can tell you about how it is handled at Banque de France side. So the security and the resilience within the cyberspace is ensured by using the right people, skilled people, processes, and state-of-the-art technology. That's quite obvious, but we have years of experience safeguarding the cyber defense of cross-border market infrastructures. So we mainly rely on an approach based on the 5 principles, which are the following: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So I don't know if you want that I go into details about the 5 principles, but maybe very quickly.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just run through,
Yeah, so only heads up on that. Okay. Identify covers a threat-driven risk and security management based on automated asset tracking and using private and public cloud APIs. Protect is more an automated access management processes, also multi-factor authentication for system operators. And we also hardened to prevent cyber attacks and have an hostile landscape for adversaries. And we also have vulnerability management, so a process to track and remediate vulnerabilities. So that's for protection. Then we have detection, and on that one we have like scenarios detection to protect the core assets of the systems based on the latest threat intelligence. But we also run automated threat simulation to continuously test and improve the detection triggers. And as I was mentioning, we have SOC teams working with extended hours to ensure the fast analysis of security alerts based on detection algorithm for monitoring the security data on a 24/7 basis, and that can raise alerts to notify the first responder, whatever could be the hour. That's for the detect principle. Then we have the respond principle, which is handled by a team called CERT, not to name it. I think it's internationally recognized, and this team has access to the most up-to-date threat intelligence. So they are members of international and national networks, and so they have private access to private intelligence channels with exclusive information about the last threats and ongoing incidents in the financial sector. So it's like complementing the commercial data feed. And the last one is recover. And so on that one, we build our systems. They are designed with replicated and redundant components to ensure the resiliency of our architecture, and to safeguard the RPO and the RTO that I was mentioning before. So that's the 5 main principles.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I'm just going to ask one more question. I know we've got a bunch of questions being brought in right now, but before we go to audience questions, I just want to ask if you could speak briefly about how Banque de France envisions the role of central bank digital currencies and artificial intelligence as part of the future, the bank's future.
Okay, so maybe not making the links with the cloud, because Sébastien already said what was worse for going to the cloud, but talking only about the CBDC. Well, as it was previously explained in the slides, the Euro system is currently performing a deep dive as to the business case of a retail digital euro through the different experimentation and the prototyping activities that I was displaying before in the slides. So the objective for the central banks is mainly to keep the anchor role of central bank money by offering it to the general public in a form that would be complementary to banknotes and adapted to I would say, to the growing demand of the public for digital payments. So as you know, the digital euro would aim to be an equivalent of cash, so replicating many of its features. I'm now thinking about the legal tender status, for example, that it should be available to pay everywhere in the euro area, anytime. The high level of privacy that are quite important for the people, and with offline functionality, so some things like that. So that could offer some enhanced features compared to cash, because, for example, you can use it in e-commerce while cash is not at the time being. And you could also include innovative features with a CBDC. And I guess that I'm done with that part. If it suits your questions.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to jump into audience questions now. So I know first we have a question from Anne Leslie from IBM, just to kick us off. So Anne, if you're there, if you want to ask your question.
So thank you so much for that presentation. It was super interesting. Really appreciate the transparency that you shared. My question is one of curiosity. So a lot of what I do in my role is with retail banks, commercial banks, and their journey to cloud. And what strikes me is that in spite of the hierarchical relationship that there is between central banks and financial institutions in the private sector, a lot of the things that you're dealing with are very, very similar. So the big pillars of your digital transformation and a lot of the vocabulary, the focus areas that you're looking at. And what I'm wondering is that in central banks like Banque de France, where you have a mission also in the area of prudential supervision, is there an opportunity for shared learning between what you're doing to manage digital transformation with cloud for Banque de France as an entity, as a central bank, and your colleagues in the prudential supervision teams who are actually looking at the changing risk dynamics in financial services and wondering how best to supervise the use of public cloud in those financial institutions? Because you're solving a lot of the issues. You're dealing with sovereignty, you're dealing with data protection and privacy. You're actually, endowed with a mission where you're under massive scrutiny, and yet you're doing it. So my question is, to the extent that you can share, how do you see that? Is there an opportunity for more knowledge sharing and learning across the boundary that normally might keep you separate? As you are solving a lot of these issues, could we be cross-pollinating maybe a little bit better?
Well, I guess that you are mainly focusing on the cloud part, right?
Yes.
Well, maybe I'm going to let Sébastien answer, but well, we are not specialists on that question. But I would say that, as was said by Sébastien, we have some principles that we can share. So, for example, we have we can categorize the data that we are allowed to host on public cloud, on sovereign cloud, and on private cloud. So it depends on the level of privacy. So if you are referring to that kind of question, then I guess that these are some principles that we can share. But apart from that, I don't think that we can share something else as regard the control that we have to make on the private companies.
No, it's not so much sharing the controls, it's your decision-making process in terms of how are you evaluating risk? How are you thinking about certain workloads can go certain places? So when you're determining, the criticality of your applications, what must stay on-prem, what could be public cloud, what could be public cloud, but it has to be a sovereign cloud, just those kind of things. Because what I'm noticing in the private sector is that nobody disagrees that data protection is paramount. Nobody is arguing that resiliency is super important. But when you start trying to tick all of the boxes and you put them all on the same level, it gets really difficult to hit perfection on all of them.
Yeah.
So it's a question of what are you allowed to put a little bit higher in terms of your prioritization, knowing that there is a trade-off, but it's okay because your risk appetite will allow you to do it. So it's just the thinking, as opposed to disclosing something highly confidential. It's more, what are your guiding principles that allow you to make decisions and move forward? Because a lot of private sector financial institutions are finding themselves stuck in analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
They want to modernize, they feel pressure to transform and move fast, and yet they feel stuck. You seem to be moving pretty swiftly. Just wondering if there is an opportunity in a trusted forum like OMFIF to share more widely actually how you're going about it.
Okay, so I'm not going to answer the question because I don't know what we're allowed to share or not, and to which extent we have already shared something. But maybe as a follow-up question, I can try to get information for you.
And it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a very good question.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I'm more on the technical part and more on our, developing, building these cloud services. But the idea of sharing our journey and maybe with the colleagues and the principles of this banking supervision unit, it could be very interesting to let. Because I don't know, I don't know if we can.
Thanks for the question that we can't really answer correctly.
All right, well, just to jump in, next I want to come to you, Francis, coming from the European Central Bank. So just want to give you a chance to jump in. And I think you're on mute right now, so you may want to take yourself off. We can't quite hear you yet.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry for jumping in, but I think I would like to pick up Anne's question, and I understand pretty well that the speakers cannot respond on this one easily. I'm working less at the directly technical level, but more at the, say, strategic and policy level, or at least I try. So what I see with cloud, I think it's very simple. We all face the exact same system out there, and that same system is not my system for me, your system for you. It's meanwhile integrated and tightly coupled. So something that happens someplace will hit everywhere at the same time. And it will hit fast, it will hit complex, and we will need to see it real time. But today we're blind. It's a bit like if your eyes see the light right away, but the brain forms images only after 5 seconds, it's fine when you quietly walk through a forest, but imagine yourself in the boxing ring. You're dead before you see the first fist coming. And that's the situation we're in. Now, we have talked about this before with Anne. And what I see in cloud is that, well, we all have data silos, and now we move our data silos to the cloud. We rebuild the same, say, Shackville of data silos in the cloud. Now, there are parts of the system that are confidential, and of course, a central bank, and I'm in statistics, so statisticians cannot unveil the individual data of reporting agents. They wouldn't give us much anymore. But there are common parts to the system. For instance, I always spent for the LEI system, legal entity identifier. There are common parts of the system, entities, contracts, and things like that, which are not private, and which we all need to use as hooks to identify the bits of data that need to fit together automatically in our systems. And I think that's where we need to revisit the way we handle data. And their cloud and blockchain can be fantastic infrastructures to put in place the data we all need to use. And actually, we as central banks would greatly benefit from all reporting agents out there to use the same identifiers for the same objects, And actually, any business out there would greatly benefit if all their clients and partners used exactly the same identifiers for the same objects, because then data could flow much more reliably and could be combined and brought together, and we would have our statistics live, some of them, rather than with the 3 or 6 weeks delay. So I think that speaks for not say more than just a technical solution. It speaks for a new architecture of data, because what we handle with these new technologies is an ocean of data. So, and it's garbage in, garbage out, but this time on a global scale. So if you fix if we rethink a little bit the way we see and understand and handle data, then we will have a chance to build technology that's really useful instead of building a high-tech slum next generation. What do you think of it?
Well, so you are mainly right on the data sharing part. I mean, but we have to keep in mind that the digital European sovereignty is a major concern. So I don't know how to address it, but we have to keep that in mind when going to the cloud. I don't know if that answered your question. I don't know how far I can go answering the question, but so the aim of sharing data is worse, that's for sure. But we have to keep in mind that data confidentiality and independence must be a primary concern for us on the IT.
Well, with all due respect, I think sovereignty and independence are notions that we already discovered in 2008, do not really have the same value today or the same significance. We need to rethink what is common and what we want to keep for ourselves. My data for myself doesn't work anymore, except that it makes every one of us blind, and it exposes us to very fast, complex accidents that can happen on a global scale. Now, I mean, I don't need you to respond to that because I know you can't speak as freely as I do. I just take the freedom.
Yeah,
but
that's nice.
No problem. But I think
that's like having the discussion. No, well, I'm not, as you said, free as you are. But anyway, I'm not saying that we shouldn't share data. I am just saying that we have to be careful on where we share it and with who. That doesn't mean that we can share the data.
Yeah. And that is a topic more for the governing council at the level of our central banks here.
Exactly, and I guess it has already been discussed, yes.
No, not yet.
Just to jump in here, because I know we want to get to some other questions. I want to bring in Thibaut from Wordline to bring in a question as well. So if you're there, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah. So thank you, Sébastien. Thank you, Julien, for the nice presentation. So out of curiosity, I was quite impressed by the figures you showed related to the Digital Euro experiment that you conducted. And I was wondering how many data centers were necessary to meet these requirements, these non-functional requirements. And if you had any other insights to share on the sizing and maybe also the geographical distribution of the data centers, because of course, with the distance comes additional latency. And I was just wondering if you could elaborate on this. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I will at least precise because maybe I was not clear when presenting. But this is when I was presenting, if you remember well, there were three parts. And the two first ones were something that has happened, and the last one is what can happen. So, and I try to precise that it mainly depends also on the will of the governing council to launch the project. So, but that was like foreseeing the future, because I was presenting the non-functional requirement that we will have to meet, and it's mainly presenting the figures of how many people in the euro area are going to use the CBDC, what it can represent in terms of entries, and what we should try to reach for the performances and the availability. Obviously, as you are a customer, you want to be able to use it at any time, everywhere, with the same user experience all across Europe. So that was more presenting what we'll have to face for the future platform. So we didn't really experience that kind of figures in the experiments. The two first one, that was not that kind of figures.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Sorry to disappoint you.
Jeannie, I want to come to your question now on central bank digital currencies and the Banque de France. Would you like to talk a little bit about your question and clarify your question?
Yeah, sure. I'm in a bit noisy place, so sorry for the background noise. I'm just wondering, what do you think is the potential of the blockchain technology for developing the central bank digital currencies? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so on that part, well, I can speak on what we did in the first experiments, and so we found out that we can use the blockchains, but we have to face several challenges. So the first ones could be with the performances, because at the time where we ran the experiments, we were not able to ensure that we will be able to reach to the right figures. Now I know that some of the blockchains, they have like layers too, and that's something that could be maybe further investigated. But at the time being, it was not mature enough, I would say. And also, at regard of the settlement finality, we had some topics to address. Well, what I can say, but I'm not. We didn't enter the realization phase, so the choices are not completely made at the time being. But so maybe we can still assess if blockchains can be used. But from my knowledge of blockchains, it's more when you want to have a decentralized governance, which is not going to be the case for the digital euro. So I'm not answering for the ECB and for the euro system. That's not my place today. But I guess that maybe I don't see the advantage of using a blockchain in that case, because a blockchain for me is when you don't have a third party, a trusted third party, which we are going to have in such a case, because the euro system wants to keep an hand on what's going on with the digital euro. I hope it answered the question.
Thank you very much. Yes.
All right. Well, with that, we're at time, and I want to take a second to thank again our speakers, Julien and Sébastien, for their valuable insights, their experience on the role of digital transformation in central banks through the cloud. Once again, if you've enjoyed this discussion, please be sure to check out in OMFIF's DMI report, our central banking and cloud services, the new frontier piece. You can find it once again in the chat, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, Julien, and thank you to all of you guys.